everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Cynthia, and today's video we're just going to be playing around with ephemera and creating a little piece of ephemera for a future project that I'll be sharing with you guys. But for now, I had some elements that I'm trying to use up before my move, and just trying to find ways to use some of these scraps and different vintage, as well as just like pieces from Happy Mail or things I've just accumulated over the past few months. And so I'm just going through some of these items. There's some vintage things, such as like these little tickets that I just pulled out. I also have some piano paper that I'm thinking I want to use. I have this envelope here, and just some scraps of papers, as well as like an envelope that got damaged by some water. I have a piece of a book and this envelope here as well that I received in some Patreon mail. So my first step here, I didn't really have a plan. I knew I wanted to create some ephemera. Essentially, I want this ephemera to be loosely themed into like a travel type of theme, or like exploration kind of deal. So I'm just trying to see like my pieces, what could potentially go well together, where do I want to start? And sometimes that's kind of the hardest thing to decide. Like I had this envelope here and I knew I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't have a concrete enough idea, or like I didn't feel motivated enough, I guess, to start with that. So ultimately, I do put that aside and then decide to use a different piece of ephemera to get started. So here I'm making the decision to go ahead and start with the piano paper. The way that it's folded, I kind of like that, and I'm thinking I'm gonna just utilize it as it is and make a bit of a fold out of it, like a little folder where I can stack some special ephemera about something, or where I can insert some journaling about a specific either outing or event. Keeping in mind the kind of loose theme that I want to have this have. So here you're gonna see me play around a little bit. I'm just trying to figure out how I want this folder to function. So I'm just folding it in different ways, trying to see what would be most interactive and most interesting to me. So I decide to fold it down like this. But what I don't like about this here is actually that it's too, it just feels a little bit too simple or clean cut to me. So I am going to be making one side different than the other. And to do that, I'm going to rip the two pieces in the middle where the fold is. I'm going to rip that and make each of the sides different. Now, unfortunately, as I did that, I did rip the piano paper not in the place that I wanted. And that happens when you're playing around with some more brittle papers. You do have to be careful, and things happen like this. So I thought, well, not a big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and rip that piece apart and then deal with that at a later time. So I'm going to start with the other side. So here I'm just making sure I get rid of some excess that didn't rip quite neatly enough. So here you can see me, I'm just folding this side of the paper a little bit randomly, just trying to create some texture and a little bit more interest to the pocket that I'm creating by folding this paper. And now I'm ready to kind of figure out what I'm gonna do with the mistake that I made by ripping that piece of paper, not exactly how I wanted it. I just figured that, you know what, it's not a big deal. And I'm just gonna use it kind of as a flip down. And you're just gonna be able to see a little bit through since it's ripped not perfectly the way that it was supposed to. So I'm just playing around with the papers that I have, and I'm settling on this kind of graph paper. It's very thin, so it's not going to add any bulk, but it adds a little bit of interest, and it kind of frames that section as a different section where most likely I'll be journaling onto. Using some double-sided tape here. I think I am going to also use my glue stick, but I want to make sure that the sides really don't lift up. And I also want to try and avoid having glue on the little holes. I just don't want to make a mess. So this is my my way of avoiding that. So now I'm grabbing some of the ephemera that I had set aside, and I really want to use this image here. It's a print from Ruby and Pearl EXO, and I'm just trying to figure out which image I would like to use. And I'm just going back to this flip here that I have, and I want it to be a little bit more interesting, and just trying to figure out a way to bring a little bit more interest, different elements to just to kind of make it seem more like a finished product rather than a work in progress. And so I decided to use one of these little tickets. I really like the color of it. It's a vintage ticket. I got that in a Patreon mail from Dust to Roses. And I'm just trying to find a little stamp that will complement the colors again that I have going on here. So I'm planning on using those two images that you see in my future pocket as journaling cards, where I can record a little bit more of whatever trip or kind of event that I want to journal about at the time that I'll be using that. So just kind of going through my little box of stamps and deciding which one I'll be using. And then I'll just sew those onto there. So I put aside things that I need to put through my sewing machine, and I'm just going to try and figure out a way that I can create a closure that is like interactive and a little bit more interesting, perhaps something different than what I've created in the past. And I wanted to use that image because I mean, like just the piano paper is relatively bland. It's really beautiful, and I don't want to take that away from it, but I do want to have perhaps like a little bit more color and design to it, I guess. So I'm just settling on folding this image this way and kind of using that image as a closure. It reminds me a little bit of, I think Cassie makes these, I'm not sure what she calls them, but she usually like uses like either like a vintage sort of label or something, and she creates a bit of a closure for some of the journals that she creates. So I was inspired by that and wanted to do something along those lines. So this is what I kind of came up with. And I have this scrap of fabric that I've been holding on to. I use this fabric for some of the journals that I've created. And this is all I have left of it, but it's obviously quite clearly in a rough shape, but I absolutely love it. And I knew I wanted to create something special with it. I had just been holding on to it until that something special kind of manifested itself. And finally, I feel like I found the right project for it. So I really like the texture that it adds. I like that its messiness and like the look of that fabric with the white and the blue does remind me of the ocean a little bit, and all of the journaling cards that I have here are kind of like water related and like the beach and the ocean. So I felt like it just seemed perfect for it. And I'm just grabbing a piece of a thicker cardboard, cutting out a circle. I used just like a circle, like a top of something to draw my circle, and I'm just cutting it out. If you have a circle punch, then by all means, that would be a lot easier, a lot quicker anyway. And I'm just going to use that as a way to create a closure. So here you see me ink up the edges of the circle. And then I'm just poking a little hole in the middle, trying not to poke myself. And I'm going to use a brad clip to kind of just like poke it through fully. So this is a step where I really need to think on how I'm going to do this. How is this going to work? That like, where do I put the closure, and like which step do I take? What do I sew before? Everything, right? So whenever you're creating, that's definitely like something to keep in mind. What do you want to show? How do you want to hide certain items that you're adding on to whatever you're creating? So I put it aside because I know I'm gonna have to sew certain elements before I put on that little like brad clip with the circle onto the image. So here you see me just inking up those two images. I just want to get rid of the very white surrounding, and I'm just gonna sew them onto a piece of paper that I've previously dyed. I was debating between the pink and the green, but ultimately they both fit on the green, so I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna use it up and really like make the most out of this piece of paper, since they fit like really nicely onto there. And then I wanted to keep this in this process because I tried so many things to try and make this, to kind of alter this envelope, and it just wasn't working. And you know what? Sometimes you really want to do something, but it's just not coming to you. And in that moment, I thought it was important to say, like, it's okay if it doesn't work, and like, don't force it, because especially with a beautiful piece of ephemera, like a vintage ephemera, like, I didn't want to ruin it, right? So I just passed everything through my sewing machine. I attached the little circle with the brad clip as well. And then I'm just gonna put all of my elements together so that we can see the final results. In here, I've sewed the pocket on the right where I can insert the 2 journaling cards. Of course, I have to be careful with the little holes. Sometimes the cards get stuck a little bit. And then this flips down and there's some journaling space. And then this is how I've decided to create my closure. And that's it for this video, you guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And otherwise, I will talk to you all in my next one. Thanks a lot. Bye now.